Aman, welcome. Um, how are you and where are you dialing in from today?
Uh, Great to great to be here, Ajay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm right now sitting at an airport uh, in Phoenix, Arizona, and dialing in from here.
Okay.
I hope that there is not a lot of background noise. I'm really sorry for that if that happens.
No, perfectly fine. I'm assuming you are living a founder's life, either selling to a customer, fundraising, or doing something related to your products. Those are the three pillars, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So today is selling to customers. I have a big conference coming up tomorrow where I'll be presenting to the leadership team of one of the big 10 insurance brokers in the United States. So
Very good.
here,
Very good. We'll
here
talk
for
about
that.
your business and your company momentarily. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining, Aman, with your busy schedule. Let's dive right into this one. Um, when I look at your background, uh, went to IIT in India, then joined a small company called Microsoft, worked there for a short while and decided, well, that small is not small enough for me. So I'm going to start a company myself. So you start your first entrepreneurial ride, and then you start your second entrepreneurial ride now with further AI. I'm curious more to understand what led you to shift from a company like Microsoft to a startup founder back in India?
Uh, Great question, Ajay, and I'm going to be very candid today. Uh, I'm in that kind of mood. So, I Microsoft was not the first company I started. I think the first thing I like worked on was actually at the age of 12, where I was selling firecrackers outside of my father's general store. This is the Diwali season, so sort of that reminded me of that memory, and it was a great experience because you were literally selling firecrackers and trying to convince people why should they buy, haggling, negotiating, and all of that. That was my first experience to business or entrepreneurship uh, in its not so traditional sense. But yeah, so during Microsoft, I think the thought that crossed my mind, I remember it very vividly, is why work for Microsoft when you can create Microsoft? The only limit that we have is like our own thinking, how big we can think. And that's where the ambition came in. I was also naive and stupid at that point in time. I think I still am. So jumped out of Microsoft, started a first company thinking that that will change the world in big ways. That was Turbo Hire. Ran it for 4 years. Enjoyed the first time founder journey, made a lot of first time founder mistakes too. Scaled it to early seven figures in ARR, raised multiple venture rounds, and then took an exit and moved to the Valley and started Further AI. It's been a year since we have been building Further AI and yeah, having fun, creating interesting products and selling in the market. So that's a bit about my journey.
And I want to kind of, you know, give kudos to you. Why work for Microsoft when you can build Microsoft? Having that kind of a vision and courage, it's great. And you were definitely not foolish. You were who we call that hustler, that many of our Indian entrepreneurial generational people that we have experience seeing, watching, growing as well. So very good. And I want to go to your earlier point that you said you are on your second time entrepreneurial journey. Um, Entrepreneurship is an experience, it's a journey in itself. That's why we call journey. And I believe second time entrepreneurs have some unique advantages or learnings as compared to the first time. What are yours? And how have they helped you in building your second company, which is now Further AI, a better company, if I may?
Yeah, so I'll come to the advantages, Ajay, but there is also a disadvantage of being a second time founder.
Sure.
The disadvantage is you think too much and you don't have the benefit of naivety on your side. So you are always watching every step that you're taking, sometimes to your own peril. Like first time founder is like playing a game of dart. You're just throwing uh, the arrows and seeing maybe something sticks. And many times it sticks as well. If you see a lot of great companies are built by first time founders, like Facebook was built by Zuck, first time founder. And there are many such examples too. But I think the second time founder, the game changes from playing dart to playing poker. And what that means is not playing every hand. In poker, the best of the players actually play one in every 10 hands. So just choosing the right things to do and focusing on those, I think is possibly the biggest difference in the way I have been thinking during my first journey versus the second journey. and also prioritizing the right things. As a first-time founder, I used to think that the most important thing is to build a great product. Then it's to build with great people. And then it's about selling in the market. It's very different now. Right now, the most important thing is, okay, which market can we build for? With whom we will build for? With, and then what is it? The product can come in. It's a means to an end, not an end in itself. So that's a big change in that thinking. Um, and on the personal front, I think the last thing is I say I don't know a lot now. As a first time founder, I wanted to prove to the world that I know a lot. So in every conversation with customers or with investors, I'll try to give an answer for every question and think that maybe if I take a pause, it will look badly on me. Now I confidently say, I don't know. Let me think about it. Let me figure it out. And possibly that reality helps people because everybody knows that nobody knows everything. So that possibly is a big change in the mindset uh, as a second time founder than a first time founder.
No, very well said. In fact, that reminds me um, a very big quote from G2 Patel, who is now the Chief Product Officer at Cisco. He has held various roles in his career, all the way from Chief Operating Officer of their WebEx business to a couple of other things. And he once said, very much like what you said, he said when he was in his 20s, he thought that he knows everything. When he came to his 30s, he thought that he had to show the world that he knew everything. And then he had the analogy for when he was in 40s, and I think now he's probably in his early 50s or something. And he said, now I can proudly say I don't know anything. And
I don't know.
importantly, I don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
That's where, as a leader, I come and build a team and
Yeah.
surround myself with people who have depth in everything and anything that I want as a business. So, very well said. So, by the way, there is a theme that we are picking up between you and Ria. One is obviously selling. I'm sure the revenue selling the firecrackers was much better than the revenue that you're seeing right now. And also the people aspect of it and the learning aspect of it. So let's keep moving on this one, right?
Yeah.
The second unique thing about your background, Aman, is you have had this opportunity to build two companies in very different environments, at least that I see from, right? One in the Indian ecosystem, and you started the company in India, and then you obviously moved here, your first company, Turbo Hire, and then now you are building your second company in US, Silicon Valley, right? I'm curious to hear from you. Are there any similarities, if you may pick up just one or two, between these two ecosystems? Um, what are they, if there are any?
In terms of the similarity between the two markets, I think fairly globally, entrepreneurship is now very well regarded. It's actually respected. People want to be an entrepreneur, unlike possibly before, where maybe parents didn't know what entrepreneurship is and they would sort of hold their kids to not do entrepreneurship and do a job. So that's a big similarity across, I think, all the capital markets that entrepreneurship is very well regarded, risk taking is rewarded as well. If you fail, that's okay too, and so on. So I think that's there in both Silicon Valley and in India. In terms of the tech, earlier it used to be that if you are in the valley, you would have disproportionate advantage in terms of the technology and so on. I don't think that's the case anymore. There is access to maybe latest models back in India and here in the valley. So I think these are the couple of similarities which I feel across the two markets.
How about the differences? So let's talk about, you said, well, the technology or the early edge access to technology here in Silicon Valley may not be as much now. So what are the unique things about both like what do you find
Yeah,
Silicon Valley has edge on versus India has edge on?
yeah. So when it comes to the differences, the big difference is the availability. Yeah. So the difference is the availability of capital.
Hmm.
In India, still, I think the venture capital ecosystem is evolving. It's great, but it's sort of still reaching to the stage of Valley, and not just US. Like Valley has a very, very, very mature uh, venture ecosystem compared to even New York that way. So that's one big deal. The limiting factor is not the capital in the Valley. It's more of the entrepreneurs thinking and how big are they thinking and so on. And bigger and bolder goals are rewarded much more in the valley, is what I personally felt for a course of time. Another big difference is the specialization in the market. Like the first time I came to the US, I was on a hardcore protein diet. So I was only having eggs, 12 eggs a day. This was like about 2 years back. And in India, when I was following that diet, so I would have to throw the yolk out and make the egg uh, with egg whites. Whereas in US, you would have just the packets of egg whites that you can use. So the market is very evolved and very mature and very specialized as well. So you need to think about from that perspective. If the market is that specialized, you need to be building those specialization, differentiation, targeting the right user persona really, really well to be able to grow quickly in the market. You can expand at any time, but you have to really be really narrow when you are starting.
Great analogy. And by the way, love the fact of that 12 egg analysis. That's the highlight of the session, by the way. We are going to post afterwards. No, very well said. I think those are
I
really
hope you don't post that, Ajay. I hope you don't.
um, so let's talk about the specialized markets, right? Silicon Valley, you are building something which is considered as of today even more specialized. You are building AI agents for insurance industry.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what, right? We all know this thing. AI agents has become like a little bit of a buzzword these days, right? I mean, a lot of websites, a lot of companies overnight became either AI companies or AI agent companies. So it's kind of a good and a bad thing to be in the space right now. Um, how are you building your product which is differentiated, which is not getting into this crowd and people's headspace of AI agents? So what?
Yeah. The funny thing, Ajay, is the market where we are operating, we don't even use the word AI agent because the agent means a very different thing in insurance. It's an
Indeed.
insurance agent, not even like it would be a misnomer in that industry. But by being very narrowly focusing on the industry, so you have the insurance as a whole, which has two parts, the broker and the underwriters. Underwriters will measure if the risk is there or not, brokers will sell it. Within the underwriter, there are different types of underwriter. You have personal lines and commercial lines. Within commercial lines, you will have further different types. So by going very narrowly in this matrix, once you figure out a problem statement to be solved, AI maybe is a way to solve it. LLM may be a way to solve it. But all the problems that we are solving have remained for a long time. This industry is 250 years plus old. It's possibly the best business model in the world. Uh, has remained, the problems have remained, but now you can solve it with LLMs because LLMs can handle unstructured data really, really well. So we don't even mention AI agent as a term to our customers till they ask for it. Most of the conversation revolves around, okay, do you get submissions over email? How do you deal with it? Okay, we have a team of 20 people doing with it. Is there a mistake in human errors? Does it take time? And so on. The answer to those questions is often yes, because when there is a human involved manually doing the data entry and data extraction, there would be errors, there would be delays. Okay, is it okay? Would you be interested if we can reduce the time by 10x, reduce the cost by 10x, and improve your customer experience by 10x? And the answer to that often is yes and yes and yes. Maybe a customer will say, how will you do it? I said, yeah, we'll use large language models for doing that, and we can do it with a high accuracy. So I think following the traditional YC advice by building for initial 100 users who can not live without your product is the way to go. LLMs is just a means to that end. I was chatting with my co-founder and we came up with this simple analogy that people said that you should not build a vitamin, you should build a painkiller. But I want to push it a level further, pun intended. Uh, don't build a vitamin, don't build a painkiller, build a effing drug. It should be that people should not be able to live without your product. It should be like that. And there are opportunities if you are ready to look for it.
Well said. I still want to go into a little bit more detail. So everything that you say makes sense. I mean, it's yes, you are starting with the customer problem in mind first, then you are going into, very human-centric approach of understanding. All of that can be done by any other player in market too, a big company or entrant, right? What is specific that you are doing or including in your product which is differentiated?
Yeah. So in terms of, we talked about the market. I'll have a lot about the market, that how we have found our niche in the market. But in terms of the technology, we have spent a lot of time in being able to process unstructured data. So
Mhm.
given any document written in any kind with an accuracy of 97% plus, we can extract the data out of it, which is 20% better than a human being doing that. So that's where the technology edge lies. And given that we're very specific to an industry, the models are much, much, much better than the underlying large language models. It's funny that even before we make a language large like LLM call or a GPT call, 70% of work is done. Because in reality, it's not about having a very structured PDF document. Sometimes you have handwritten documents in insurance, scanned documents in insurance, rotated documents in insurance, and
Yeah.
so on. So you have to deal with the messiness of the real life, which is where if you can deal with it, you can compound on it. That's what we have been doing.
Well said. Yeah, well
Yeah.
said. So it's really focusing a lot of nuance effort on the product and also just going deep in one industry and vertical to understand their pain points and processes. Good. And when you do all of that, again, the same question that I asked Ria earlier, you will need capital for that. And a startup, it's always a thing about, it's always raising. So tell us about how has been your fundraising journey, if any, that you have been doing? But more importantly, what is the number one experiential advice you want to give to founders who are also currently in the process of fundraising?
Yeah. So I think I did it very differently in my first company and doing it very differently in further AI. Ajay, you mentioned always be raising. I want to challenge that. Don't always be raising. The best way to raise capital is to first decide what matrix you want to hit before you are out in the market to raise capital. When you're going out in the market to raise capital, in 2 weeks, schedule 50 meetings within 2 weeks of time. Either you will come out of those 2 weeks with a check in hand, or you'll come out of those 2 weeks with a lot of learnings, which you can apply again. And then after 3 months, you can go back to the market. The problem that happens is when you're always be raising, you do not have the urgency on your side as well as on the other side. What is one thing that founders don't have that an investor may have? Time.
Okay.
As a investor, if I'm investing my money and if you're coming to me for fundraise, and if there is no urgency, I'll be like, yeah, I'll wait it out. Let's see if there is somebody else who comes in and writes a check for Ajay, and then I'll come in as well. So how do you create that urgency?
Very well said. Yep.
By
Great
time
playbook.
boxing it.
Very well
So
said. Great playbook on that. With that said, Aman, such a pleasure listening to all the stories. There is a lot more to go.